best. So, wanted to get this, to get it started, maybe I could just give a little background on how we got to know you, um, and the work that you and I have done together. So, for everyone's information, True Platform, I'm going to let Jillian talk a little bit about what they do, but True Platform did just launch their new intranet with Staffbase. I had the opportunity, the pleasure to consult with Jillian and her team on getting to the finish line of launching the internet, which I think was last week or maybe even this week that it went live. So congratulations on that. But yeah, so everyone has some context as to how we know Jillian and True Platform. So that being said, Jillian, maybe you can introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your experience in internal communications, and also share a little bit about what True does for a living.
Sure. So True is a global platform of talent management solutions, both products and services. The biggest part of our business is focused in executive search. And it's very data driven, and we have an extreme focus on diversity and inclusion. And kind of all of our products and services lead toward that and support that mission. For myself, I did not have a straightforward path into internal communications. I had previous roles that were scattered across different parts of companies, but they each gave me a piece of experience I needed for internal comms: content management and creation, multimedia solutions, internal newsletters, and even exhibits management. I think the project management, the stakeholder management within that really was a big piece that helped me. And about 4 years ago, I made my way into an IC role, and it was just absolutely the perfect fit. It kind of combined all the pieces of those previous roles that I loved and was really passionate about.
Awesome. So before we met, before you came, to work with Staffbase, what was the situation with your intranet or lack thereof at True? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. When I started at True, and full transparency, I have been just over a year in December. But at True, things move really quickly. When I started here, they just doubled their employee base in a year, but hadn't really doubled the operations side of things yet. There was no dedicated IC team. There was really one person that was dedicated to the execution of internal comms, but then various people had different hands in different baskets and also helped with IC. We emailed a lot, and the demand for internal comms services was really getting overwhelming. We were kind of in that hamster wheel. So we were like just trying to keep up and didn't have an opportunity to plan ahead very much because it was a very reactive comms situation. We were doing a lot of Slack and intranet posts as follow-ups, but that wasn't really our main source of communication. It was a constant flow of emails.
What in terms of the number of employees, I don't know if you mentioned how many. You said that you doubled, but how many employees are we talking about?
So we have about 900 now. When I joined, I think we had almost 700. So we were, but in the year leading up to when I started, they had doubled their employee base.
Right, and you mentioned email overload. Heard this many times. Obviously, in an organization like True, I would assume most folks do have access to computers, to intranets. Did True have an intranet when you joined? What was the situation with it?
We did have an intranet. Like I said, because of the quick growth, there was really no time to stop and reset and say, hey, like we need to make sure that this intranet is going to support us through future growth and into future success. So it was just Band-Aids. We were like, oh, we need to put this on the intranet. Let's add a page, or we need this on the intranet. Let's just add a box and a widget and Slack out a link to it. So we were really, like I said, that hamster wheel. We were just trying to keep up and make sure everyone had the information they needed. But the intranet became so complicated in navigation. I'll talk about this probably later, but we have very different user groups at True that need very specific resources that are different. So it was an information overload. Nobody knew where to find things. We really were in need of a revamp and an overhaul.
So how did it work? I mean, you said you've been at True now for a year. That's a long time, but not that long of a period of time. And all of a sudden, this project of creating an intranet, comes to you. How did that evolve? Was this something that you took on yourself, realizing the importance of communications, or how did it evolve?
Yeah, I came in probably in a storm to the marketing and comms team at True, where I was just, where's a communications calendar? Where do we do project management? I was implementing all these things because for me, it was so important to have a bird's eye view of everything coming up so that we could plan, and then we could choose our communication channels wisely. And then when I realized what communication channels we were using, I noticed pretty quickly that our adoption rate was really low for our True North, which is the name of our intranet, pun intended, and that our email system was not capturing analytics the way we wanted. So I kind of took it upon myself to say, hey, I think we need a new solution. I started doing some research before I even really got the go ahead, just because I don't like to come to the table with a problem. I like to come with a solution. So I had done extensive research and started taking that on my own plate, and kind of the rest is history. What else do you want to know about that?
And what role, I mean, historically, I guess you would say, IT has driven the intranet process, as makes sense. There's security issues, there's technological issues. What a company is able to do. There's database issues. How did it work in your relationship with IT? I think it's fantastic that, and we're seeing more and more of this communications taking the lead. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about, how you went about, interacting with your colleagues in IT?
Sure. So we had actually also just brought on board a chief information officer who was really taking a bird's eye view of all of the SaaS platforms that we had, making sure that we were streamlining. So it was kind of perfect timing, because I wanted to combine multiple systems that we were using into one, and propose a solution to senior management that really streamlined everything and would get us out of 14 different platforms at once. And he was looking for opportunities to do that anyway. So immediately kicked off that conversation. He reviewed our extensive research. We had this gigantic spreadsheet of all the capabilities for different places, different platforms. And he helped us identify the requirements that we would need as a platform in the back end, to keep us secure and keep data secure, because we do have access to things that we want to make sure is protected for everyone.
Mm-hmm. For sure. When you come in with these big spreadsheets, what sort of capabilities were important to you? There's a lot, having worked in intranets and really studied the landscape of the burgeoning employee communications application marketplace. There's a lot out there. So, what were you looking for? How did you get your arms around it?
So some big things that I noticed, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, but we really needed opportunities to segment our content. Different parts of our business need totally different resources and tools, and everyone was getting everything. So user segmentation and the ability to really provide a personalized, customized experience for each of the users was super important, to get everybody what they needed immediately versus having to sift through the noise. That was really important. Another thing that we looked at was the usability from a design perspective, because IC was driving this, we needed to have a platform that was super simple for us to use. I joke a lot now that we're working in the platform that I come up with solutions that probably wouldn't work in any other design platform, but because Staffbase was built for people who don't always have that design background, it ends up working out and nobody can believe it. So an easy design experience studio, amazing analytics. I was looking for that, that were just included. A lot of times that's like an add-on here, or something additional here. And that was something I was looking for. It should be base. What good is your employee communications platform if you don't know what results you're getting? And then another one was the seamless flow into an app, versus having to recreate or redesign for an application on your phone. I wanted that on-the-go access, and we have a really small team. We now have 3 people, and we manage all of the content. So we wanted to make sure there wasn't a lot of extra effort that needed to go into managing that mobile application.
So, so much of what you just said is, I don't know if you were on the last session. One, the success factors, personalization, segmentation being a key success factor for an intranet design. Having a good design, the analytics. So it's amazing that the things that you're saying are exactly what you're validating exactly what me and Lottie just what we just mentioned. What your thought about desktop versus mobile is one that is very near and dear to my heart, because and I mentioned this earlier, when I think about the mobile device, we don't really differentiate between desktop and mobile, because the content, if you wanted to, really can and should be accessible in a really nice way through both, right? And that's obviously something that you see. And then also having one place to be able to publish the content, knowing that it's going to render great on a large screen or in on a small screen. So it seems as though that's something that was important and something that you thought about, which is great.
Yeah. I would say that previously we might have had 2 downloads for our app. That was not something that we focused a lot on because it was a lot of management. And we launched on Friday last week, and we already have, I think, 10-15% of our users that have downloaded. We're obviously going to need to push that with communications because it's not something everyone's used to.
Right.
But we have high hopes for it. And also with that segmenting for mobile and desktop, while we were looking for something that we didn't want to have to manage differently for each, we realized that the thing people would need the most when they go to the app was not maybe the homepage. So we also worked really closely with Staffbase to figure out what that user experience was like and get them to that contact section, that network section of the intranet, that would get them easy, simple access to be able to find anyone at True, call them, Slack them, email them, whatever they needed in that moment.
Yeah, and I mean that sort of function, especially the mobile device, right? Like if you're on the road and you need to get in touch with someone, and the ability to search for who that person is, search based on job classification, location, what have you, and then be able to tap a button and call them directly. That's pretty amazing. And like I've heard war stories of folks who like can spend hours trying to get in touch with someone. So it's now a reality. I want to share with the folks who are listening in today a little bit about the process that we went through together, and what your thoughts were in terms of how we went about it. Maybe I can just start off by saying that we at Staffbase we have a workshop series called Foundations, where we look at things like user segmentation, we look at content strategy, we think about prioritization of content, and then architecture and designing of that content. And we try and navigate that in a pretty linear fashion with our customers. Maybe you can just talk about your experience and how we got from start to finish. Well, it's never finished; it's always ongoing. Let's call it launch.
Ever evolving. The first thing I can say about all of this is just if you're going to revamp your intranet, if you're going to work with Staffbase on like overhauling things, just trust the process. There's a reason behind each of the steps. Outside of our coordination with Staffbase ahead of working with them, because we had some time lapse before we were going to start with the courses, we had an intense discovery phase. So we had conversations with more than 100 people in all areas of the business around the world, just to see like, what do they use it for? What don't they use it for? What would they expect to find on it? A lot of the stuff was already there, but just not easily accessible for them. And we had all of that knowledge coming into these courses, which I think was huge for us, because when you started asking us sticky questions in the foundations course, we were ready. We had lots of information to share. Sometimes we had to like reroute or change direction, but we really got to the bottom of it through those courses. And maybe what we thought we understood about the business wasn't so straightforward or clear cut when it came to organizing content on the homepage. So the foundations course really helped us level set, take a step back, and figure out exactly what we needed for each user group. I think you helped us align on our goals, and sometimes there were some battle conversations internally about that, figuring out how to best segment user groups and what each of them needed. But it really came down to a place where we were confidently able to say, okay, this is our homepage. The most important things are at the top for each of the different user groups, above the fold. It's just so important for us to deliver that personalized, relevant information and reduce the noise so they can be successful, efficient, effective, like in seconds. And the foundations course not only helped us identify the homepage, but we used that and carried that through to all of our different page structures. Okay, this page is totally different, our data page. What do people need to know first? What's most important to them here? So we use the learnings that we got in the foundations course to carry it through our entire intranet build.
Yeah. A few thoughts in listening to what you just said. So goals, objectives, whenever I have a conversation and then consulting with companies, I want to always kind of bring ourselves back, ground us in why we're doing what we're doing, why we're spending time in this effort, and the goals, objectives, challenges, pain points for how do we become more efficient in our work? At the end of the day, that's what this an intranet is all about, right? And I think you saw that, and it obviously was before we started working together. It was not that efficient, and that's time wasted, and time wasted is money. So, I think with regard to user segmentation, I always like to ask, and I think I asked of you, can you provide me with a organizational chart of True? And many companies will provide me with something, and great, thank you. Some companies don't have it, and that's fine as well. We'll figure it out. But one of the things that I've seen over the years is that the way in which an organization thinks about it itself is not necessarily the way in which they communicate with their employees, right? And I've gone through exercises where we've actually turned the entire organizational structure upside down for purposes of figuring out what the appropriate user segmentation targeting of content should be, so as to make for a personal, relevant end user experience, whether it's through mobile or whether it's through desktop. And one of the things that I think is so cool, you mentioned, the fact that you spoke to 100 different people. Since when does communications make its rounds and schedule meetings with operational people who are out in the field, people who are doing technical work, and it's, I'm seeing more and more of this where communications is really, establishing a place for itself in an organization beyond just putting out press releases or, putting out fires on a daily basis. So kudos to you. And I would imagine that was a pretty good end result for you all, you and the team.
I mean, yeah, it was. And look, like, we're in internal comms. We are the ear, we are the voice, we are the news, and we are the resources. We are that connector for everything in the business, to be able to take it all in and be able to spit it back out in a way that's digestible for each individual person. So it's so important to hear from everyone who's using your product, not using your product, and figure out what they need most. And look, these conversations are not done. We have already determined that we're going to have regular feedback sessions, whether that's monthly, quarterly, with the friendlies that I've called them, to just come in and say, hey, how's it going? What's new? What isn't working? What's working? So those conversations are not done. And this has opened a door for a really great working relationship between the entire business and comms.
So it's amazing. I know that the audience would love to see some visuals, which I want to, you being kind enough to let us take a couple of quick screenshots of your intranet. While we're doing this, I'll let Jillian talk about what you see on the screen now, but certainly in the time remaining, which is about 7 minutes, if you have questions, please put them into the chat, and we'll try and take as many as we can. If not, certainly I'm sure Jillian would make herself available to speak with any of you. But Jillian, maybe just tell us, what do we see here?
Yeah, this is our search homepage, which is different. Like I said, one of our biggest parts of the business, and our design minds versus our functional minds battled a lot in this, because we wanted it to be visual, have the pictures, like make sure that people came in and were just like, wow. But everything told us in those conversations, it's like, have the resources at the top. Like, search is moving so fast. They need things instantly, and they can't be looking around for them. So across the top, you have like the regular top navigation, but you also have these 3 buckets of resources, that basically on any stage of their work process, they can easily click that button. It's a drop down, and it gives them all the relevant top resources for that stage of their work. And this is a little bit different than what our ops homepage looks like, because we have totally different needs and responsibilities throughout the day. So you'll see there's some news. We've put, at the top, the news that's relevant to them and their work, and then platform news over to the right, which is more general stuff. We also, had to kind of swallow our pride and realize that maybe the news isn't the most important thing for this team. So we made sure that their resources were top left, across the top, and then also top left for regular resources. And they're all segmented by user group. So if one role needs to access Salesforce all the time, that's their top button. If one team needs to access PitchBook or LinkedIn, that's their top resource button. And there's a drop down showing like what kind of resources we have for the win the work section, which is, in the beginning before you even get started on a search.
Great. There's a question that came in about the custom fonts. Talk about the fonts here. I mean, you did have if I recall, you had a designer that works with you. How simple was this to execute on?
So Staffbase was great with dealing with all of our requests coming in. We immediately were like, hey, this is our font. We've used it everywhere. It's our brand. There's no questions asked. We have to be able to use this. And these are our colors, and they have to be like this throughout everything. And every time you create a new widget, they actually made custom CSS for us to kind of cover the entire intranet to make these changes for us in different widgets. So that's a regularly available font, but just one that we've adopted as part of our brand, and really is the true brand. And we had some help from Staffbase carry it through everything. It was instantaneous too. I know the requests came flying in, and everyone on the Staffbase team was super eager to help us do that.
Great. With the few minutes that remain, so change management, launching a new intranet, that can be daunting, especially with a lot of
Mhm.
people, right? And explaining to them what this new thing is and why they should use it and why it's better than what we had before and how it's going to help them in their work. We do have a very short video that that you've given us the permission to show. Before we do though, maybe just talk about, it was just last week, the launch process that you went through with the change management.
Yeah. So, you get done with this entire creation and revamp, and you're like, now what? But you realize you also have to launch. So you're the patient and the doctor in this situation. You also have to launch your intranet to the internal world. And we love videos, short videos at True. We love emails, obviously. So we incorporated that. But something big we wanted to do is engage with the friendlies and the people who helped create this and be like, hey, like, you helped create this, like, tell everybody what your favorite part is. So we've worked and created some basic Slack drafts for different stakeholders to get them involved as well and get them, over the next couple of weeks, slacking to the groups to make sure we're very active on Slack. It might seem a little crazy, but we are in there all the time. So we're having stakeholders come in and share what they're excited about, what information they want to share with everyone, and understanding that way everyone can understand what they're excited about, and it's not just internal comms saying it to them.
Right.
So it's really that engagement piece. It's the two-sided conversation, us saying, hey, it's available. These are all the things that are new for you, showing differences between home pages to prove it, and then really letting the product speak for itself with just a drip campaign of comms and reminders. Really
Great. So this is a little video that you put together, which is fabulous. For like 30 seconds of it. I think that gives us a good flavor for what your True North platform is all about, and also just how to launch things, creative ways to do it. And I've seen folks launch their new intranets, mobile employee apps on high budget, but also very shoestring budgets, particularly given stretched resources or lack thereof. So yeah, so Jillian, thank you. I mean, we could chat about this for another hour. We really appreciate you joining us today. I hope that this was helpful, informative,